So on this board right here, we have every single NHL game that has a season mode in which you can simulate. And today we're going to figure out which team could win the most Stanley Cups from NHL 95 up until the current day NHL 24. And before we get into this, leave a like and comment down below which team do you think is going to win the most Stanley Cups. And the one thing you gotta know about NHL 95 here is there's no simulate to the end of the season option. I have to simulate day by day throughout the entire season and postseason just to figure out who's going to be taking home the Stanley Cup. So of course, I'm a W-mans here and I want you guys to sit through this entire process, so I'll see you once the postseason's all wrapped up. It took a while to get here, but here we are, and the Edmonton Oilers are going to be our first Stanley Cup champs of the video as they're taking it home in NHL 95. And just like that, the Edmonton Oilers are going to be the first team placed on the board here, but I'm not going to be showing the board every single season. I'll be showing it every like 5 or 6 years, just to remind you guys on who's been winning Stanley Cups. And for NHL 96, of course, we got to highlight some of the top players in the league. We're going to have Sergei Fedorov sitting at a 99 overall. Eric Lindros, and I didn't even know this was possible, but he's sitting at a 100 overall. I didn't think it was possible to be higher than 99, but I guess you can be. And we're also going to have Ray Bourque, who's going to be the highest rated defenseman at 97 overall. So NHL 96 has the same system as NHL 95, where I can't simulate right to the end of the season. I got to go day by day. So once we know who our Stanley Cup champion is, then I'll be back. It took a while, but we finally got here, and our Stanley Cup champions in NHL 96 is going to be the Quebec Nordiques, as they're going to be taking down the LA Kings. So in NHL 97, we're going to have a three-way tie for the best players in the league, and it's going to start off with Ray Bourque, who's sitting at 99 overall. The only goaltender going to be sitting at 99 overall is going to be Ed Belfour from the Chicago Blackhawks, and we're also going to see one forward having a 99 overall rating, and that's going to be Jaromir Jagr. And the best part about NHL 97 is I can just simulate right to the end of the season. I don't have to simulate game by game, and the simulation actually goes pretty fast because we're over halfway through the season already. Before we figure out who's going to be taking home the Stanley Cup this season though, a quick word from today's sponsor. I want to give a massive shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there for getting tickets for your favorite events. The NHL season's finally here, and now it's time for you to pick up some tickets from SeatGeek. They give every single ticket a rating so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. On top of SeatGeek having tickets for thousands of events, if you use code SOTI at checkout, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. And once again, I want to give a shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. In the Stanley Cup final, we're going to see the Colorado Avalanche match up against the New Jersey Devils, and in a 6-game series, it looks like the Devils are coming out on top. With NHL 98, it makes it way more complicated to tell who's the highest overall because they don't use a number system, they use this little bar system. I don't know what they were cooking up when they decided to switch this, but it's definitely not it. So when it comes to the highest overall player in this game, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but I know for a fact Brendan Shanahan's definitely going to be in the top 5 here. And speaking of the Detroit Red Wings, I'm trying to pass them YouTube subscribers, so if you haven't already, make sure you sub to the channel and drop a like while you're at it. Another one of the top players in the league, it should be no surprise, that's going to be Patrick Waugh. And we'll round out our top 3 highest overall players from the Phoenix Coyotes. Number 7, Keith Tkachuk. So in my personal opinion, from the 3 seconds of playing this game, NHL 98 is a massive step back from NHL 97 because I can't just simulate right to the end of the season. I gotta go game by game here, so this might take a minute. So in a back and forth series the entire way in the 1998 Stanley Cup final, we're gonna see the Colorado Avalanche taking down the Florida Panthers in 7 games. And in case you were wondering what the league leaders looked like, Teemu Selanne led the league with 54 points. That's right, 54 points in 82 games and he led the league. Makes sense. So once again, NHL 99, EA brought back this system for overall, so the top 3 players I'm listing probably won't be 100% accurate, but we are gonna see Teemu Selanne in the top 3 once again. Making his return to the top 3 from the Philadelphia Flyers is going to be Eric Lindros. And to finish it out, we're going to have an elite goaltender from the New Jersey Devils. You might know him, Martin Brodeur. So NHL 99 might be using the same stupid overall system, but you know what they brought back? Simulating the entire season with one button. Just a nice quality of life feature right here. For the second game in a row, we're going to be having a close Stanley Cup final as the Washington Capitals and Dallas Stars going back and forth the entire way, but the Washington Capitals are going to have an answer in Game 7 and they're winning the 1999 Stanley Cup. So unless I'm doing something completely wrong here and I just have the settings all screwed up, Adam Oates is going to lead the entire league with 25 points. I'm convinced I have this wrong because I mean, like, if you go to playoffs, he led the entire playoffs with 8 points. These are the season stats apparently where he has 25. I'm assuming I must have screwed up the settings at some point, but it's NHL 99. I wasn't even alive when this game released, so yeah, you gotta give me a break if I don't know the settings. We've moved on to NHL 2000 and we have a ton of 99 overalls, and it's gonna be starting with Paul Kariya from the Anaheim Ducks. And the Anaheim Ducks have more than one 99 overall, and that's also gonna be Teemu Selanne. And I shouldn't be calling them the Anaheim Ducks. These are the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. I gotta put a bit of respect on their name. The Buffalo Sabres are gonna have themselves a 99 overall in between the pipes, and that's Dominic Hasek. Classic. The Colorado Avalanche are going to be another team with multiple 99 overalls. The first is going to be Peter Forsberg, and the second is going to be Joe Sakic, because Patrick Roy, he's actually sitting at a 97 overall. It's no surprise here from the New Jersey Devils, Marty Brodeur is going to be a 99 overall once again. From the Philadelphia Flyers, it's not going to be Eric Lindros as the 99, it's actually going to be John LeClair. And our final 99 in NHL 2000 is going to be coming from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's going to be Jaromir Jagr. For the second game in a row, we're going to see the Dallas Stars reaching the Stanley Cup final. Unfortunately, it's the same result as last time, but a different winner as the New York Rangers are taking them down in a 7-game series. So we've officially simulated through 6 games so far. We've had 6 different Stanley Cup winners, so it's good to see that we're seeing a lot of parity so far. So in NHL 2001, I think we've reached the end of the 99 overall era. Jaromir Jagr is going to be leading the way to 98 overall. Not too far behind Jagr is a St. Louis legend and Chris Pronger, who's a 97, and tied at a 97 overall, but also the highest rated goaltender in the game, Olaf Kolzig. Well, Dallas Stars fans, it's time to celebrate. After dropping your last 2 Stanley Cups in the past 2 games, you've made it to the Stanley Cup final once again, but this time you're going to be coming out on top in 7 games. Also, St. Louis fell in the conference finals, but we're not going to worry about that. And the scoring statistics this season are actually working, and Steve Yzerman is going to lead the league with 139 points, but Pavel Bure, he's going to be picking up 75 goals, because why not? So we've officially moved on to NHL 2002, and our highest overall player is going to be Dominic Hasek at a 96 overall. We're then going to have a 2-way tie for second as Joe Sakic's a 94 overall, and so is Mario Lemieux, who's making his first appearance of the video. At the end of the 2002 season, we're going to see the Detroit Red Wings hoisting the Stanley Cup here, as they're going to be taking down the Boston Bruins in a sweep. Meanwhile, it was a massive season for Kozlov here, who's picking up 149 points consisting of 104 goals. But more importantly, Pavel Bure, back-to-back seasons winning the Rocket Richard, but he picked up 90 goals this season. This dude was locked in. So in NHL 2003, we're going to have 4 players tied at a 98 overall, and 2 of them happen to be goaltenders. The first is going to be Patrick Roy. The second goaltender coming in at a 98 overall is going to be Jose Theodore from the Montreal Canadiens. The 2 other non-goaltenders are going to be Joe Sakic from the Colorado Avalanche, and of course Nick Lindstrom from the Red Wings. When the postseason came to an end, it looks like the Washington Capitals are going to go on another run this season, and they're going to be taking home their second Stanley Cup of the video, taking down the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games. The scoring numbers weren't as crazy this season, but Peter Forsberg is going to be leading the league with 122 points. In NHL 2004, our highest overall player is going to be Peter Forsberg at 97 overall, while the highest rated goaltender is going to be Martin Brodeur at 95 overall. So after seeing the Washington Capitals win their second Stanley Cup in the last game, the Detroit Red Wings, they knew they had to bounce back, so they're going to be taking down the New Jersey Devils in a sweep to win their second. Also, thought I'd mention, leading the league in points as well as goals is going to be Jeff O'Neill, as he's picking up 62 goals, but he's also going to be picking up 116 points. Joe Sakic is going to be bouncing back big time in NHL 2005, as he's going to be the highest overall at a 96. But I should actually say tied for the highest overall, but he's also 96 overall, and our highest rated goaltender, that's going to be Roberto Luongo. In the 2005 Stanley Cup, I believe we're seeing 2 new teams making the Stanley Cup final, and that's the San Jose Sharks taking on the Buffalo Sabres, and it looks like the San Jose Sharks are going to be coming out in a 7-game series. Also, unless I'm completely missing something, there's no way for me to look at the league leaders, but Sergei Fedorov at 35 years old, not only is going to lead the Anaheim Ducks, but he's going to lead the entire league with 160 points. He also picked up 82 goals, because why not? Through the next 5 simulations, we're going to continue to see parity, but the Detroit Red Wings are picking up 2 of our next 5, so this team might be getting ready to go on a bit of a run here. For NHL 06, we're going to be running it back with the 2 highest overalls. Of course, once again, it's going to be Joe Sakic at a 96 overall. And you already know Roberto Luongo, he's going to be the highest overall goaltender at a 96 as well. At the end of the NHL 06 simulation, we're going to see the Vancouver Canucks and Montreal Canadiens matching up in the Stanley Cup final, and the Canadiens are going to be taking down the Canucks in a 5-game series. Also, can we talk about that Western Conference Finals? The San Jose Sharks, the number 6 seed, taking on the Vancouver Canucks, the number 8. There was a lot of upsets in the postseason, to say the least. Okay, so Keith Tkachuk here is going to pick up 148 points, but who cares about the points when you're picking up 95 goals? He had 95 goals, then we had a 78 goal scorer, and then we had a 74 goal scorer. We also had a 75 goal scorer right here. Didn't even notice him. We also had a 70 goal scorer in Jerome McGinley. Brendan Shanahan's picking up 69. Bro, the goaltender's numbers must have been cooked. Ain't no way this many goals were being scored. Also, shout out to Keith Tkachuk for breaking the single season goal record. Who would have thought that would have happened? Especially at 34 years old. After that Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup victory, we're going to be moving on to NHL 07, where Jaromir Jagr is going to be the highest overall in the game at a 97. Meanwhile, the highest overall goaltender is going to be a 93 overall. But we just got to look at Jagr's stats here for a second. Like, this man basically has 99s across the board if it would load here. Yeah, 99 shot power, 99 accuracy. It's basically 99s across the board except for a few attributes. It's clear to see this man was the best in the league at 34 years old. So I'm going to be honest, I have no clue where to find the playoff tree because it's normally under Stats Central and it isn't for this game. But all I know is the Detroit Red Wings are your 2007 Stanley Cup champion, and that's their third of the video. I'm sorry to say though, the goal scoring isn't as ridiculous this season as Peter Forsberg's only picking up 130 points, including 65 goals. But we did have a 77 goal scorer here. Not too familiar with this player right here, I'm just going to be completely honest. I have no clue who you are. You're an 87 overall, Jan Hrdina. Show to you, I guess. Now let me explain this. I've been sitting here for a good 30 minutes trying to get NHL 08 to work, and for some reason this game will not load. I get stuck on this loading screen every single time, so unfortunately we're not going to be seeing NHL 08 in this video. Unless I can find a fix later in the day, but unless I can't, this is all we're going to see from NHL 08, their loading screen. So here we are in NHL 09, and Sid the Kid's finally made it to the top of the league. He's the highest overall player at a 96 overall. Also, I want to express how upset I am that NHL 08 isn't working. I played it a month ago and that game worked perfectly fine, but when I try to use it for a video, God forbid it can ever load. And I also don't think it's much of a surprise here, but our highest rated goaltender, that's Marty Brodeur once again at a 94 overall. However, I think I spoke a bit too soon because also tied at a 94 overall for goaltenders is Roberto Luongo. These two guys have been going back and forth the past couple years for the highest overall, and now they're tied. It just seems fitting. At the end of this season, we're going to be having a very unlikely matchup as the New York Islanders, who are the 8th seed, are going to be taking on the 6th seeded Anaheim Ducks, and in a quick 5-game series, the Islanders are going to be coming out on top. And although Sidney Crosby was the highest overall, he's not going to be the guy leading the entire league because that's going to be Alexander Ovechkin. He's got 52 goals and 69 helpers for 121 points. An absolutely incredible season from the grade 8. Moving on over to NHL 10, Sidney Crosby once again is going to be the highest overall in the league, and he's at a 94. And when looking at goaltenders, Roberto Luongo's claimed that number 1 spot again. He's a 92 overall, while Martin Brodeur, he's only a 91. At the end of the NHL 10 simulation, we're going to see the Montreal Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup, taking it over the Chicago Blackhawks. Meanwhile, we're going to have a new player leading the league. We actually have 2 new players because they're both tied with 104 points. The first one's going to be Rick Nash, and then Jeff Carter, he's going to be right behind him. So it's time to change things up, and here we are in NHL 11 with Alexander Ovechkin up to a 94 overall, the highest in the game, actually ahead of Sidney Crosby by 1 overall as he's dropped to a 93. And for this game, it's not Martin Brodeur or Roberto Luongo as the number 1 goaltender in the league. It's actually going to be Ryan Miller, who's sitting at a 91 overall. At the end of the 2011 season, it looks like we finally got ourselves a new Stanley Cup champion, and that's the LA Kings, as they're going to be taking down the New Jersey Devils in a 7-game series. And along with a new Stanley Cup champion, we're also going to be seeing a new league leader, and that's going to be Bobby Ryan, who's leading the league with 98 points, 48 goals, and 50 helpers. Definitely didn't think I'd be seeing Bobby Ryan leading the league in points today, but here we are. Who would have thought? So Detroit's looking to expand that lead over the next 5 simulations as they're going to be picking up another Stanley Cup, their third of the video, but the Montreal Canadiens, they're catching up because they're picking up their second. Ovi's reign at the top of the league isn't really going to be lasting that long because we moved on to NHL 12 and Sid the Kid's back at the top of the league as the highest overall at a 94. When it comes to goaltenders, we're actually having a tie for highest overalls. Of course, we have Ryan Miller once again at a 91, but we're also going to be seeing another member from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's Marc-Andre Fleury, as he's also a 91. Vancouver Canucks fans, it's finally time to celebrate. You're going to be hoisting the Stanley Cup in NHL 12 as you're taking down the Washington Capitals in a 5-game series. And while Vancouver goes on to win that Stanley Cup, Kovalchuk's going to be leading all players in scoring. He's picking up 107 points, 50 goals, and 57 assists. That ain't a bad season by any means. It's time for the Pavel Datsyuk show as he's now tied for the highest overall in the game at a 95. But some things just never change because who's he going to be tied with? Well, that's none other than Sidney Crosby, who's also a 95. And along with Sidney Crosby, Ryan Miller's also going to be back as the highest overall goaltender as he's a 92. And it might have taken until NHL 13, but this team's finally winning a Stanley Cup. Congrats to the Chicago Blackhawks as they're going to be taking out the Islanders in a 5-game series. On top of a new Stanley Cup champion, we're also going to have a new guy leading the entire league, and that's going to be Evgeny Malkin, who's only picking up 87 points. So that's quite the drop-off we saw compared to the last game. So we've seen this site before, and it's a familiar one. Once again, Pavel Datsyuk is going to be one of the highest overall players in the game at a 95 in NHL 14. And you know who else is one of the highest overalls? That's Sidney Crosby at a 95 as well. Looking at goaltenders though, we are going to be seeing some new faces here, and one of them is going to be 91 overall Jonathan Quick. And alongside Jonathan Quick, we can't be forgetting about King Henrik, as he's also going to be sitting at 91 overall, so they're tied for the highest overall goaltenders in the league. So we've been seeing a handful of teams winning Stanley Cups, but we haven't seen many teams win multiple, and it looks like the San Jose Sharks are going to be joining that elite few as they're picking up their second. And with San Jose winning the Stanley Cup, you already knew this man was going to be leading the way for them. That's Jumbo Joe, 31 goals, 67 helpers, 198 points. Congrats on finally winning a Stanley Cup. So we moved on to a new generation of consoles, and we're on the PS4 now with NHL 15 and Sidney Crosby. Some things just never changes. He's the highest overall, still at a 96. And similar to the last game we played, we're going to have a two-way tie for the top goaltenders in the league. We're first starting off with Henrik Lundqvist, who's a 93 overall. And who would have expected this one? It's going to be Jonathan Quick, who he's tied with at a 93 overall as well. Similar to NHL 14, we're going to be seeing a new Stanley Cup champion in this one, as the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to be taking down the LA Kings in a 6-game series. During that dominant run, though, Corey Perry is going to be the guy picking up the most points in the league from the Anaheim Ducks. He's got 93, consisting of 46 goals and 47 helpers. And leading the league in goals, well, that's going to be none other than Alexander Ovechkin, as he's going to be picking up 55. So we might be changing games, but it's no surprise that we're seeing Sidney Crosby at the top of the league here. He continues to be the best in the league at a 96 overall. And it's also about time that Carey Price is getting the respect he deserves. 94 overall, he's the top goaltender in the league. And maybe if we're lucky here, we'll see the Montreal Canadiens go on a bit of a run, and Carey Price can finally get himself a Stanley Cup. It might have taken until NHL 16, but the Tampa Bay Core is finally going to be winning themselves a Stanley Cup, as they're going to be taking it over the Minnesota Wild in a 7-game series. While Tampa's winning that Stanley Cup, though, Evgeny Malkin's going to be the most dominant player in the entire league. He's picking up 107 points, 17 more than the second guy in Tyler Seguin, and 20 more points than Sidney Crosby. He's got 45 goals and 62 helpers for 107 points. A fantastic season from Malkin. Over the last 5 games, Detroit wouldn't be able to expand their lead to 3 Stanley Cups, but the San Jose Sharks would be able to catch up, picking up their second, and they're keeping the Stanley Cup competition competitive. NHL 17 is going to be signaling the end of the Sidney Crosby era at 29 years old. He's a 95 overall, still at the top of the league, but that's going to be changing real soon. I don't think it's much of a surprise who we're going to see as the top goaltender in the league. Once again, it's going to be Carey Price, as he's going to be running it back for back-to-back seasons. But he's not going to be the only 93 overall goaltender, as Jonathan Quick's having a bounce back year, and he's going to be tied with Carey Price for the top goaltender in the league. So unfortunately, it's Sidney Crosby's final game as the highest overall. Him and the Penguins are going to go on a run, but it's not going to be enough, as the Nashville Predators are going to have an answer in a 7-game series as they're taking them down. With this game just about wrapped up, we'll take a quick look at the scoring here. John Tavares is going to be leading the league with 96 points, while Vladimir Tarasenko, a St. Louis Blues legend, he's going to finish second in league scoring with 95 points, but he's also going to be picking up 53 goals, and that's leading the entire league. Now, I might have been slightly capping when I was talking about Sidney Crosby being the top player in the league, because he still is at 93 overall, but he's not alone anymore, because that young kid by the name of Connor McDavid, he's finally caught up at 20 years old. He's up to a 93 overall, and we're leaving the Sidney Crosby era, and we're about to enter the Connor McDavid era. We might be slowly transitioning from Sidney Crosby to Connor McDavid, but when it comes to goaltenders, that's staying the same for one more year, as Carey Price is the top guy here at 92. So with this being the final game where Sidney Crosby is going to be tied for the highest overall in the league, he knew he had to go out with a show. So what's he going to do? Well, he's going to go on to win the Stanley Cup, taking down the Colorado Avalanche in a 6-game series. However, when it comes to the regular season, Sidney Crosby isn't going to be the star of the show. That's going to be Steven Stamkos. Not only is he taking home the Rocket Richard with 58 goals, but he's also going to be picking up 104 points, and he's leading the entire league. In NHL 19, some things are just never going to change, as Connor McDavid continues to be the highest overall in the league. However, when it comes to goaltenders, Carey Price no longer stands alone, as Braden Holtby is going to be joining him at the top of the league as a 91 overall as well. But even though those two guys are our top goaltenders in the league, neither of them are going to be taking home the Stanley Cup this season, as the Dallas Stars are going to be winning their second of the video, taking the Columbus Blue Jackets down in 5 games. But the real story of this season was Sidney Crosby leading the entire league with 93 points, 36 goals, 57 helpers. He might have dropped off from being the top overall player in the league, but he's still playing like the highest overall player, and that's a fact. Of course, with moving on to NHL 20, Connor McDavid is going to continue to be the highest overall in the league, but he's finally moved up to a 95. Similar to NHL 18, NHL 20 is going to be a passing of the torch moment. Carey Price, currently he's tied as one of the top goaltenders at a 91 overall. But as we know, this guy's going to be taking the reins pretty soon, and that's going to be 91 overall Andrei Vasilevsky. We've seen both of these teams in a handful of Stanley Cup finals, but it looks like the Washington Capitals are going to be winning their third here, and it's been a while since they won their last, but they're taking the Avalanche down in 5 games. We aren't going to see anything ridiculous when it comes to league scoring, but Kucherov, Giroux, and Kuznetsov, they're all going to be tied with 89 points. So we've moved on to NHL 21, and like usual, Connor McDavid is going to be the highest overall overall in the league at a 95. Meanwhile, the top goaltender, as we know, is going to be Andrei Vasilevskiy at a 91 overall. Now, I would have never expected that this late in the video we would be seeing new Stanley Cup champions, but I guess we are, as the Boston Bruins are going to be winning their first, taking the Winnipeg Jets down in 6 games. I will say though, through all the games we've simulated so far, we've had a large variety of different Stanley Cup winners. And with this season in the books, at 35 years old, we're going to see another fantastic season from Alexander Ovechkin, 106 points, but also 55 goals, and that's going to be leading the league, allowing him to claim another Rocket Richard trophy. So we're entering our final 3 games here, and unless an amazing comeback can be made, it looks like the Detroit Red Wings are going to be winning the most Stanley Cups. For NHL 22, Connor McDavid is going to remain at 95 overall, but he's still the highest rated player in the entire game. Meanwhile, that guy over in Tampa Bay by the name of Andrei Vasilevskiy is still the best goaltender at a 93. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I don't really like this Stanley Cup final whatsoever, especially because of the outcome of it. The Florida Panthers are going to be taking down the St. Louis Blues in a 5-game series. That's how you know it's a simulation, because obviously this wouldn't have happened in real life. Jordan Binnington would have been able to hold it down, steal the series for my boys. Also, can we talk about how Jordan Binnington has been absolutely elite so far this season? I know it's only been 2 games, but he's only allowed 2 goals in 2 games, and Buddy has looked fantastic. He's giving me a bit too much hope right now. On top of a new team winning a Stanley Cup, we're also going to see a different player leading the entire league, and it's Nathan MacKinnon. About time, 103 points, 46 goals, 57 assists. Shout out to that man right there. So we're down to our final 2 games here. No surprise here, McDavid, he continues to be the best player in the league at 97 overall. And along with McDavid staying at the highest overall, Andrei Vasilevskiy continues to be the best goaltender in the game, but now he's up to a 94. So in our second last game, we're going to see the Colorado Avalanche matching up against an unlikely foe in the Buffalo Sabres. But as we know, that Colorado Avalanche team, they're pretty good, so they're going to take the Buffalo Sabres down in a 7-game series. Before we move on to our final game though, we got to check out Nathan MacKinnon's stats once again, because he's leading the entire league. 122 points, 50 goals, 72 helpers. Let's get on to NHL 24, the final game of the video, and figure out who's going to be winning this season's Stanley Cup. So here we are on the current NHL 24, Connor McDavid, 97 overall. We already know this. And the best goaltender in the league, massive shocker here, but that's Andrei Vasilevskiy for either the 4th or 5th year in a row. I don't even know anymore. All I know is this is the last chance for a couple teams to get their first Stanley Cup here, and their only Stanley Cup of the video. But I will say, there's a ton of parity in today's video, and let's see if the St. Louis Blues can get one. Because we're on NHL 24 and we started in NHL 95, and this team is yet to get one. 30 simulations and St. Louis didn't win a single one. It's tough out here. For NHL 24, we're going to switch it up here, and we're going to show the league leaders first, and we're going to have a 3-way tie for first. We're going to have Nikita Kucherov 104, Brad Marchand and Braden Point, they're all having 104 here. Also, Connor McDavid, nowhere to be seen here in the top 10. Don't know where this man is, but nowhere to be found in the top 10. And it looks like this is the matchup NHL 24 is predicting. The New York Islanders taking on the Seattle Kraken, and the Islanders are going to be coming out on top in a 7-game series. So here's the Stanley Cup winner from every single NHL game, from NHL 95 all the way to NHL 24, and I gotta say, there was a ton of parity. Out of the 32 teams in the NHL right now, we had 21 different Stanley Cup winners, so only 11 weren't able to win Stanley Cups. And unfortunately, in those 11, my St. Louis Blues. Yeah, it's tough out here, it is. But you know what? Shout out to Jordan Binnington. That man has been locked in these past 2 games. And of course, shout out to my dog Robert Thomas for picking up that shootout goal, helping us beat the Seattle Kraken. That's how we're ending the video here.